This is Speaking with the Enemy on the Ticats Audio Network. Here is Louie Butko.
Yes, it is Speaking with the Enemy, back for another season on the Ticats Audio Network. Quick refresher, my name is Louie Butko. Thanks for checking us out on the Ticats Audio Network, however you found us, and let's get right into it. Very pleased now to be joined by Mike Hogan. He's the play-by-play voice among very many hats he wears with the Toronto Argonauts. And Hoagie, here you go. I'll give you the floor. We have not chatted on these airwaves since your team went and did something last season. That being the Grey Cup. Hoagie, the floor is yours. You got 30 seconds. Keep it positive, please.
I wasn't going to bring it up. I was going to be nice today, but you call me the enemy, and then you're nice enough to mention the thing that happened in November last year. So I wasn't going to do that to you. I didn't wear any championship gear here, did I?
That's
true. I was being nice. It's a new me.
Well, we couldn't have had this conversation without acknowledging the fact that the Toronto Argonauts are the Grey Cup champion. What have you noticed? Have you noticed a change in swagger at camp? Is there any difference from the way champion Argos are preparing versus the way the team was preparing going into the year they won the championship?
Probably not. And I think Ryan Dinwiddie and the coaching staff have been very adamant about saying, last November's in the rearview mirror. And if you're looking too hard in the rearview mirror, you're not looking ahead. And that's been the message here. Nobody's wearing any of the champion. I was kind of joking off the top, but no, I haven't seen one piece of championship merchandise from last year. Nobody is mentioning it at all. It's okay. Hamilton's going to be really good this year. Ottawa's going to be a lot better this year. Still, I guess everybody's going to try and see what Montreal's all about. But guys know that it's going to be really, really hard to win the East and get to the Grey Cup, let alone win it again this year. And again, I think it just stokes things up between your club and our club. Because, on paper anyway, and Ottawa may have some things to say about this, but I think once again, going in on paper, I think that it looks like it's going to be a really fun year between the Argos and Ticats again.
To that point, people talk a lot about the Ticats additions, bringing in Bo Levi Mitchell, some additions on defense, including Jagarrett Davis, who you're very familiar with. Ottawa's going to be better. A lot of people are talking about them, a healthy Jeremiah Masoli. There's some question marks about Cody Fajardo. Do you feel like maybe as Grey Cup champions, the Argos aren't getting the respect they might deserve heading into camp for possibly coming out of the East? And part two to that question, do you think they even care?
I don't think anybody cares, but if they do, it's like, hey, good, let's have Winnipeg number one. After the Argos got blown out in BC last year, 1,000-1, when Nathan Rourke went crazy, I think the Argos were number 7 on the CFL power rankings. And that's kind of, okay, we had a bad game. Let's use that. And I saw one that had us 4th. And it's like, okay. And I get it to a degree because Chad Kelly doesn't have the experience that, say, a Bo Levi Mitchell does, or most of the other quarterbacks in the league. But if you have been around him as much as everybody in this building has been, there's something there. He's looked great in camp. He's looked really good in camp. So I think everybody's pumped up for that and know how good he can be. And I think unless your team was playing the BC Lions last year, you love to see what Nathan Rourke was doing. It was a new quarterback. There was that influx of adrenaline around the league, and I think Chad Kelly can be that guy. He's considerably older, I guess, than Rourke. I think Chad's 29 now, I think. But in terms of being a starter in the CFL, this will be his first year, and I think people love that style of play from a quarterback. And again, unless you're playing the Argos on any given week, you're probably going to really enjoy watching Chad Kelly play football.
He's got no shortage of confidence. If there's anything we've learned in this offseason, he's been on various shows and trying to make a name for himself, rightfully so. What else does he bring to that role? I mean, we saw what he could do a little bit, but really, we're basing on what we know about Chad Kelly on a very small sample size, what we saw. How do you expect him to take that jump to the starter, the number one guy, 18 games this season. I mean, where do you see him having success to be able to make that jump? And where do you think there's going to be a little bit of work needed through the early part of the preseason or even the season?
I think what's made Bo a really popular quarterback in the league is he's got that gunslinger mentality. And I hate that cliche, but a guy who's aggressive and will aggressively look downfield. And I think Chad's going to do that. He's thrown some he threw a pass a couple of days ago off his back foot, scrambling to his right, that hit Curly Gittens full stride 60 yards downfield. We were on the sidelines. We were kind of looking, did we just see that? Like he's not afraid to do that. If he sees a guy open, he's gonna, hey, you're the receiver, go make a play. So I'm sure there are games that are where not all of those are going to work, where there are going to be multiple interception games. Like any quarterback, but maybe more so with him compared to Mac, because Mac would take his shots, but they were, he would go through the progressions where I think Chad's a little more willing to go downfield. And the fact that he can run the football is going to keep linebackers just nuts. Just do I commit to the quarterback? If I don't, he's going to drop it over my head to a receiver. If I do drop back, he's going to run for 15, like we saw in the Grey Cup. So, he's an interesting dude, and I think he's going to be a really good quarterback.
Now, you mentioned McLeod Bethel-Thompson earlier, and when you look at what he did in his time, obviously was a leader on that team, had success. You expect Chad Kelly to take some of that because he is the quarterback. That's a position that you're going to look for leadership. But who else do you expect to step up as a leader on a Grey Cup champion team that's going to be needing to click right away?
Thank you once again for saying Grey Cup champion. That was really well played. I'll take you back to that game in Regina last year. And I went into the room at halftime for a little bit, and there were three guys talking. There was Mac, there was Darius Bladek, and there was Andrew Harris. And Andrew Harris is the guy that is going to fill whatever void. And I actually talked to Chad about this today, doing an article for Argos.ca. We had a lengthy sit down and talked about a plethora of things. And one was leadership. And he knows he doesn't have to be the guy. Like by position, as you mentioned, the quarterback's going to be a guy. Chad is capable of being that guy, but he knows he's got veterans around him too. And if there's that high adrenaline vocal leader on the offense specifically, it's going to be Andrew. At times it could be Mac last year, but Andrew was always there as well. So that's also, I think, going to help Chad, where he doesn't have to be all things to all people all the time. He can just go out and be Chad. And there are enough leaders, Enoch Mwamba and Wynton McManus. And there are guys on this team that are going to lead just by being themselves. And so I think Kelly's going to get a little bit of a reprieve there, because he doesn't have to force that into his vocabulary. He's just going to go and be Chad.
Now, when you and I have both seen a lot of training camp, there's a certain point of camp where it gets routine, it gets very old, but you see guys that you like in practice who you just think, I can't wait to see him in a game, even if it's a preseason game. Who are guys like that? Who are players that have stood out to you in camp, made nice plays in practice, that you're really excited to see against an opposition where they can take hits and give hits? Who are you excited to see?
There are two guys that were the two primary targets in free agency. Flo Rimolade, who came over from Calgary, who's just been ridiculous in camp, and Darius Pickett, who came over from Montreal, who was their top defensive player a year ago. These guys bring that leadership just by going out and doing what they do. And it was funny, like for the first few days in camp, it's like, Pickett's really not showing much. And then they put pads on, and then Pickett was the best player on the field. Like he's that guy who just wants to go out and play and perform, and when it's football, he becomes a football player. You've seen it enough too, where some guys they want to get through camp, they don't want to get hurt. I think for both teams on Saturday, when the two teams play at Tim Hortons, you're going to see guys who are going to be happy just that they're not hitting their teammates and friends. That they go out and hit the bad guys, and it's just a different color uniform to go out and hit, whether it be in our case Hamilton or Ottawa or Montreal or whomever. It's just you're not hitting another blue jersey. So I think that's going to be fun on Saturday. And those are the guys I want to see. But the two guys that have stood out on defense have been those two. I think Tavares Daniels has had a really good camp. He really seems to have something, there's that a quarterback sometimes will have that thing where same wavelength of the receiver. And Kelly's hitting a lot of guys, but it seems in that situation, Tavares has become maybe that guy for him early in camp, though there are so many guys who are receivers and, Harrison will let out of the backfield or Leak or whomever it might be, that he's going to have a lot of choices in that.
You mentioned uniforms. You mentioned blue uniforms, and I wonder if you did that intentionally to get me to bring up the big news this week when it comes to the Argos, going back to the Cambridge blue. You are obviously part of whether it's behind the scenes, but you hear these conversations that talk about going back to the roots of this team. Just how big of a move is this from your perspective, and what are you hoping to capture? Everybody will say you're trying to capture that nostalgia, but it seems like it's more than that. Just your overall impressions and following up on those points there to the uniforms.
We were talking about this today. This has been going on since before COVID. We were looking for this jersey for this year. So this is not, there may have been a temptation to go to it earlier if it had not been for the last season, and then it became, well, let's do it right. Let's do it for 150, and it does have that throwback. I mean, one of the things that you have seen when we did the helmet release video, there was a real tie-in with the Argonaut Rowing Club. That's where we came from, right? The Argonaut Rowing Club, founded in 1872, and a year later they said, okay, we have our rowing team, and then we have hockey season. What do we do in between? And there was this, rugby football thing that was starting to make waves. And they said, well, let's try that. And that was the birth. So, on Friday, we're having a news conference to kick off and share our 150 plans. And we're doing it at the Argonaut Rowing Club, which is not too far from BMO Field. It's an opportunity to tie in the reason why we're here, quite frankly, and to do it in a respectful way. I went down to check out the rowing club just as a site tour because that's where we're going to have the news conference. And I was astonished at how many football photos they had up. You walk into the Henley room, this giant room they have. It's a beautiful facility. And right above the doorway is the 1922 Toronto Argonaut team, football team. It's remarkable. So maybe this is a partnership that has gone awry over the years. We'd like to bring that back. And we really do want to celebrate with the oars on the shoulders of the uniform. If you look at the pants, it looks like a stripe, but if you look closely, you'll go, that's an oar too. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And yeah, it does have a distinct homage to the past, but it's also kind of moving forward with the font numbers that we have, the number of the font that we have for the numbers. I think I think it really worked out well. I saw earlier incarnations that I didn't like so much. Today I saw the full uniform on the players for the first time for our media day. Wow, it looks even better than it does in the photos. What do you think? Be honest.
I like it. I like the the baby blue, the Cambridge blue. I think it's a sharp look. I think, I still love that old school dark navy blue, like the pinball era. So I think, both teams having a wealth of history to lean on, and we talk about this rivalry and we're going to keep talking about it throughout the season, but anything that can connect people to what they remember or what they think is special or can bring that back. And, nostalgia is a very popular way to go, but there's a reason that, they were the greats. So I love the color and, can't wait to see it in action very soon.
I think it was a Labor Day game when we brought out the boat logo. We brought back the boat, like for those who are watching, on like the one on my hat. And it was in Hamilton, and I've been here, since 2000 as a play-by-play guy, but working for the Argos since 2018. I don't think I've ever seen more positive response for anything than when we brought back the boat logo. And one of the things was, that's the logo of my youth. That's the logo. I remember going down to the CNE with my parents and going and watching my first Argo games. And there is room for nostalgia. And it's funny, Louie, because I've worked here and I don't know where the line is because, both of our franchises have great history. How much do you rely on the past? How much do you rely on the present? And how much do you look to the future? Because there's that temptation to lean too much on Holloway and Rocket Ismail and Pinball as a player, et cetera, as opposed to moving ahead. You don't want to forget the past, and you want to honor the past, which is what we're doing, especially this year in our 150th. But where is that too much nostalgia, not enough nostalgia? I still don't know where that line is, but I don't think we can have too much of it in 150.
Well said, Hoagie. Appreciate this as always. Looking forward to seeing you down there on Saturday.
And who was the Grey Cup champion last year?
You know what? We've acknowledged it. We've moved on. You've gotten your acknowledgement, Hoagie. You've gotten it. We've moved on. Thank you for doing this.
That was the only time I brought that up. I just want that for the record.
Sure. He's Mike Hogan. I'm Louie Butko. Thanks for checking us out on the Ticats Audio Network. You can catch Speaking with the Enemy as part of the pregame show on Saturday with Bubba O'Neill and Andy Fantuz.